Hi everyone. Tonight I want to talk about the most difficult 3 months of my life that I've had so far. So I'll start from the beginning. July 4th, 2019. So this was about a year from now, a year ago. I was driving to work and I reach up and I feel my neck for whatever reason. Might have had an itch or something. I just felt my neck and I felt a decent sized lump. It was a pretty good size lump there. Um, I know a little bit about this stuff, so I figured this was a lymph node, and I scheduled an appointment with the doctor, saw the doctor. He confirmed, yep, that feels like a lymph node. Get an ultrasound. So at this point, I know there's several things that can cause enlarged lymph nodes. Well, there's two main things that can cause enlarged lymph nodes. I hadn't been sick. Didn't have any recent infection or anything that I would think that would cause a lymph node to swell. So typically lymph nodes, you'll get swollen lymph nodes in the submandibular region that's under your chin after you have a cold or something. Typically that'll happen after you get a cold or something, or maybe you get a hand infection or something and you'll get a swollen lymph node in your armpit, something like that. But I didn't have a cold. I didn't have any infections or anything like that, and the area of where this lymph node was a particularly suspicious area because these lymph nodes in this one particular area do not typically swell from infections. So I saw the doctor. He ordered an ultrasound and I think CBC and just a blood panel. Blood test came back fine. Usually they always will. Um, so I got the ultrasound, and I was hoping the ultrasound would come back showing reactive lymph nodes. So you can tell on ultrasound typically if a lymph node is malignant or reactive by its shape. So typically on ultrasound, normal or reactive lymph nodes are going to be avascular, I believe avascular, or only with hilar vascularity. They're going to be an oval shape and they're going to be below 1.5 centimeters in maximum diameter. Now, I believe in certain areas of the neck there can be some lymph nodes that are like 2.5 centimeters in length, and the main thing is they don't want to see them above 9 millimeter in short axis. So lymph node is, think of it like a bean, right? You don't want it to be greater than around a centimeter in short axis, so across. And it also shouldn't be too big in length as well. So I get the ultrasound and hoping it would come back just normal, reactive, nothing to worry about. Well, I get the ultrasound back and it came back a 3.1 centimeter mass is identified in the area of the lump. This may represent a lymph node, but a mass cannot be excluded. Recommend CT with contrast of neck. So when I hear this result, I'm thinking, like, there's no way this thing could be 3 centimeters. I felt it. There's no way this thing could be 3 centimeters. But it was. It was 3 centimeters in length and about a centimeter in diameter. Now, 3 centimeters in length is too big for a lymph node. Straight up, that is too big. That's very much so enlarged. And typically when you get something that big, like with reactive lymph nodes, they usually don't swell that big. They usually stay under, they're usually 2 centimeter maybe in length, but 3 centimeters is enlarged. Furthermore, there are several regions of the neck. Some regions of the neck are not as concerning as others. So let's say you have a enlarged lymph node in, let's say, the submandibular region of your neck. So this is going to be under your chin, like right around here. So if you feel directly under your chin, you'll feel a couple things. You'll feel your submandibular salivary gland, which can be seen right here. There's 2 on each side. It's that walnut shaped thing. And then sometimes you'll feel a lymph node or two. So if you have a swollen lymph node here, that's not too concerning. See, there's one right here. Now that's because the lymph nodes under here commonly are going to swell from colds or just anything. Allergies can even make these swell. It's not concerning because these filter out anything that you breathe in or anything in your throat that gets irritated. So if you get an irritated throat, these lymph nodes can swell. See, this one's about a centimeter long. It's fine. There's one there, and then there's probably going to be another one right here. Yeah, there's another one. Looks like another one right there. So like finding a lymph node that size here would be not so much of a concern. Same with like the anterior triangle region of the neck down in, I believe, this area. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a radiologist, so don't rely on this info whatsoever for any kind of medical advice or anything like that. So if you get a lymph node like in the common areas that would swell from an infection that size, it's not really a concern. there's different levels of lymph nodes in the neck. The most concerning area of the neck is going to be the posterior triangle. Now, the posterior triangle is where my lymph node was. The posterior triangle, or at least most of them, or a lot of them, end up being malignant, usually lymphoma or something else. So when I found this out, I was obviously very, very concerned. So I got the ultrasound on July, I think it was July 22nd. Got the results in a couple days or whatever, and was told I need to get a CT scan. Now at this point, I am full on, just learning that you might have a mass in your neck or full on, or lymphoma or something like that. That's not very nice. I'll tell you that. This was by far the hardest thing I went through in my life, and all I could really do was just come into work, and there had been days on that time period where I just could not do anything at work. I was so unbelievably stressed out by this. I couldn't do anything. I would just come in here and either Google stuff, try and find stuff out, or just sit here and not do anything, because that's a pretty stressful thing to go through. So I got to the point where, I kept putting off the CT scan. So I could have got the CT scan that same week, but I didn't. I didn't want to know. I was at that point where, when you have something that size in that area of the neck, it usually does not turn out how it turned out for me. A 3 centimeter lymph node in the posterior triangle is usually, it's not a good finding. It's not a good finding. So in my mind, I was already convinced that I had lymphoma or something else like that. So I didn't want to get the CT scan. I was like, I don't want to know. I know I needed to know eventually, but I didn't want to know. So I kept working, and eventually I just put it off. I did not want to go get it done. I did not want to know if there was anything. I just wanted to kind of live in my own world and work and, go for walks on the beach and stuff like that. And that's what I did. But eventually I got sick of it. It's like, okay, I really need to know. It's time to face this. And I faced this. I got the CT scan. Now, keep in mind these lymph nodes in my neck, they felt the same size that they did when I got the ultrasound. They felt exactly the same size. They were maybe a little bit bigger, actually. And I could actually still feel them to this day. They're a little bit smaller now, but you could still feel them. So I think it was August. When was it when I got the scan? Is there a date on here? Yeah, August 16th. So I put it off for about a month, and I finally went and got the CT scan. So I get the CT scan results back, and what do you know? It came back okay. Whatever lymph node was seen on the ultrasound, the 3.1 centimeter mass was shrunk. So we're gonna go through this, and we're just gonna have a look at everything. Like, again, I'm not a radiologist. I'm not a doctor by any means. I'm not a medical professional. We're gonna go through this. So let's just start up from the brain. So there's two scans here. There is the non-contrast, and so with looking at lymph nodes, you have to use contrast because they're hard to differentiate between other vascular structures. Oh, and that was one other thing finding on the ultrasound, speaking of vascularity. Lymphomous lymph nodes, so lymph nodes caused by lymphoma, tend to have peripheral vascularity and hilar vascularity, or peripheral vascularity with absent hilar vascularity. Now, what I'm talking about, I got to pull this up. Let's see. We will just go over here. All right. I want images. Okay, here we go. Perfect. So, typically on normal lymph nodes, you'll have hilar vascularity. Now, lymph nodes have a fatty hilum. So if there's a little, like a center of the, let me see if I could find an image. These are all abnormal, but there's normally a little, like a little spot of fat on the lymph node where the vessels connect to it or whatever. Usually you'll get vascularity in there, but nowhere else. There shouldn't be peripheral vascularity. Well, the lymph node in my neck did have peripheral vascularity, which is a very suspicious finding from that. This is peripheral vascularity right here. So this is an ultrasound, a Doppler ultrasound image, and here is vascularity on the surface of the lymph node. Let's see, where's hilar vascularity? Right here. So this would be both hilar and peripheral vascularity. So this is hilar. This is normal if there's no peripheral vascularity, but with the presence of peripheral vascularity and hilar vascularity, that's a suspicious finding for either metastatic, let's say laryngeal cancer spread to the lymph node, or lymphoma. This particular lymph node right here was seen in lymphoma, which is, peripheral and peripheral, I can't speak, whatever. But when there's both forms of vascularity, that is a very common finding in lymphoma. Mine had peripheral vascularity, so not a good sign. That was another key characteristic. So, back to this. This is the non-contrast CT. So they usually will do two CTs. They will do or at least in my case, a non-contrast first, and then a CT with contrast. So the non-contrast, you can't differentiate between blood vessels or vascularity around the lymph node. It's not you could still see lymph nodes. I mean, there's a couple here, there's probably, there's probably a few that you can see, but you can't see as great as with the contrast CT. Now, what the contrast is, it's an iodine injection through an IV that weakens the X-ray beam as it passes through when it passes through the blood that has containing the contrast. So, for example, you see this is bone right here. The bone is going to be harder for the X-ray to pass through. Well, that's what the contrast does, is it makes the blood harder for the X-ray beams to pass through in CT, so you can see where the blood vessels are. So look at this. So here's the heart, or the vessels leading up to the heart. This is with contrast. This is without contrast. See that difference, that color difference? That's the contrast. So with that, it tends to help when visualizing certain things. So here's the lungs. You can't really see the lungs too well, so we'll switch over to CT lung. We'll just go up, and they're clear. You can see there's nothing concerning. You can just see the airways. Now, one thing that people don't know about your lungs is that your lungs actually go all the way up to your collarbone area. They're huge. You think they're just in your chest. No, they go all the way up to to your collarbone area. That's where this is right here. Let's switch back to just default. So, starting at the base of the neck, we'll go up and see what we see. So here is the supraclavicular area right here. Now, supraclavicular and posterior triangle lymph nodes are the most concerning for lymphoma and other stuff. There is no real. There might be there's a lymph node right there, I believe. That's small. Let's see. What size is this one? Measure. Yeah, see, 5 millimeter, 6 millimeter by 5 millimeter. That's well within size limits. That's fine. So we'll go up. These may look like lymph nodes. These are blood vessels right here. These are arteries and blood vessels. Now, with the non-contrast CT, these can get mistaken for lymph nodes or something else because of, they look similar. But one key characteristic is they're going to follow. Lymph nodes typically not going to be bigger than 1 or 2 slices, and this is following the neck up. So, the base of the chin, right here, there's 3 right here. These are the submental lymph nodes. These will, I believe, drain the bottom of the mouth, stuff like that, so mouth infections can enlarge these, and these are 5 millimeter by 3 millimeter by almost nothing. 3 millimeter, those are all within normal limits. Obviously, those weren't the concern. So, moving up, these are going to be the start of the submandibular lymph nodes right here. This is these 2 walnut-looking things. These are going to be your submandibular salivary glands right here, I believe. Lymph node right here. I think we talked about that earlier. And then, let's see. The jugular digastric chain lymph nodes are kind of hard to view on this image right here. We will switch to a different angle in a second, but those guys are going to be in this area right here. We'll see if we can see any. The black is the windpipe. Just say that. The black, any air will show up as black, or less, the least dense is going to show up as black. So air is obviously not very dense. So there, it looks like, okay, here's some lymph nodes right here, I believe. I'm not for sure, again, I'm not a doctor, but these look like lymph node, jugular, internal jugular lymph nodes right here, or deep cervical lymph nodes right here. They're all small. Now, the lymph node that I believe they were concerned about on the ultrasound was actually not the lymph node that I felt. It was going to be part of the jugular digastric chain lymph nodes. So the lymph nodes that I actually felt in my neck, let's see, where were they? They are going to be right around here. Scroll down. All right, so here's, I don't know if these were the ones right here. Yes, right here. So these guys right here is what I felt. I believe, I'm not 100%, but these are the posterior triangle lymph nodes right here. Let's see, was this it? I don't think these are that, honestly. I don't think that, but that may very be what I felt. Scroll down, see if we see any more right here. Nope, that I believe was them. So the actual lymph node of concern on the ultrasound, I believe, was another one. So let's see if we could find that one. Let's switch over to a different angle right here. We'll look at this view right here. So, all right, here we go. So here is the jugular digastric chain lymph nodes right here going up. See them right here? There's a few there. There's a few here. There's one that's bigger. Here's a bigger one right here. That one is 9 by 8. So that's a, that's a decent sized one. That might have been the one that shrunk as well, but that's right in that same area. Here's another one right here. This is one of the jugular digastric chain lymph nodes right here. That one is 1 centimeter. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. The one thing to look at is the shape too. As long as it's oval, it's usually fine. Let's see. See if we could get a better view at the ones that I felt. Here's another one right here. I believe behind the ear. Those swell all the time. And a lot of people, they're usually fine. Where was the other ones? Here's one right here. That one's only 7 millimeters, though. You have hundreds in your neck, just to point that out. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lymph nodes. But the point is, after the CT scan, what was ruled out is whatever that was seen on the ultrasound. It might have been any one of these. I don't know for sure which. I don't have the ultrasound images, so I don't know what they saw in the ultrasound. But whatever it was shrunk on the CT at the time of the CT compared to a month earlier. So most likely reactive. In other words, they didn't really know what caused it, but that was that. So long story short, my purpose of this video is to give anybody advice to what to do if you're in a situation like this. So this sucks. I will say that it is one of the most miserable things to go through anything like this when your health can be affected in such a way. It is miserable. It's debilitating, and for good reason, it's debilitating. So one thing to remember is that there is nothing you can do to change your current situation. So if you're in a situation like this, there's absolutely nothing that you can do in your power to change your diagnosis or what's in your fate. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and that it is what it is. So eventually I got to a point when I just accepted it. It's like, okay, if I have lymphoma, I have it. The cure rate is over 95%, especially in my age group. It's going to suck, but I'll get through it. And that actually empowered me by looking at that. I tend to be a realist. I'm not an optimist because optimism I think is dangerous. That's a topic for another video. But I tend to be a realist. I'm not a pessimist, but I am a realist. So I put myself in this situation. Okay, it is what it is. What can I do? There's nothing I can do to control it. There's nothing I can do to change it. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I have a business. I have a store. I want to keep this store. So what am I going to do? Okay, if I have to get treatment, I'm going to keep working. I'm not going to let anything stop me. I put myself in that mindset that I'm not going to let anything like this cause me to close my store or anything like that. And that's what I did. I just worked and worked and worked and worked. I put myself in that mindset, accepted it, and that was it. Now, with that being said, that's not exactly healthy either, so you probably shouldn't do that. You should not assume the worst until you actually get that news. So, I could have probably grown my business a lot further in those extremely busy months if I was not worried sick about this. But put yourself in a situation like this, it's kind of hard not to worry sick, or at least be somewhat concerned in a fashion that would affect your work ethic. It's extremely hard. I'm not able to do it, but then again, that's me. Other people may be able to do it. So, my advice to people going through a similar situation like this is, one, understand there's nothing that you can do to change what's going on. You cannot, worrying certainly isn't going to help, and this is one thing that I can never grasp, and at least if somebody told me the same thing, I'd probably think they're crazy as well. But worrying is not going to help anything. It's really not going to help anything. No matter what it is, you're not going to gain anything by worrying about something. You're just going to stress yourself out. There's literally no gain to that. So maybe there are people that have more mental self-control than I do, but don't worry about the worst until it actually happens. So in this case, it was perfectly fine. Maybe if I got the CT scan a week prior, they would have said, oh yeah, this is big, go get a biopsy. Now, a lymph node biopsy would have been a lot less fun than the CT. So I don't know. But try not to get to that point. Try not to get to the point where you're accepting anything like that. Try and just don't think about it, don't worry about it, distract your mind until you actually have something to worry about. So in this case, like I said, the ultrasound was fairly suspicious, so that was a fairly good reason to be concerned, but then again, it really wasn't, because nothing was definitive yet. But the overall fact of acceptance that whatever it is, I feel was the most beneficial to me, because when you put yourself in that mindset, or when you think about it in reality, that's the truth. Whatever is going to happen to you is going to happen to you in that situation. There's nothing you can do that's going to help it. It is what it is. So when I put myself into that mindset, I realized, okay, I need to work a bit harder now, because I know if I do have to get treatment, I'm probably going to be tired. I'm probably not going to be the most productive. So what I did is I just started working hard, getting whatever I had in my queue out, and, just basically waiting. And when you put yourself in that mindset, it kind of makes you feel empowered that, if you go into something like that and just think, oh, I'm going to fail, I'm going to have to close my business, I'm going to have to do this, that, and that, you're not going to get anywhere like that. You need a sense of determination. You need willpower to be able to tell yourself that you're going to get through that and still come out on the other side, untouched. Obviously that didn't happen, and thankfully it didn't happen. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit, because like I said, I've mentioned it a few times. I've never really talked in depth about it, but here that is. Is what it is. But all is well now. Like I said, this was totally normal. Ended up being totally normal. But I just thought I'd share about that, because that was a fairly difficult time in my life, and that's it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.